Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about S1 and as well as Eidolons for Seele. Which one is exactly better and which one is my personal bias? What do I think about it as well? There will come a point of time, and you guys may not believe it right now, but if you play long enough in gacha games, you will actually start considering getting S1 signature Lightcones of the particular character, or even going for Eidolons, even if you are a total free to play, as long as you play long enough. That point of time really happens once you, for example, completed most of your main team, you like certain characters, and you don't really care too much about new characters in future. Maybe you're just waiting for something to happen and you have already a PT saved up. I think that's a good point of time where to start referencing, and some of you might be at that point of time now. But just a quick disclaimer, I don't think that you need E1 or any Eidolons or even her S1 to function. There's a very nice free-to-play Lightcone already, the Cruising in the Stellar Sea. It works very well for her, and I don't think you should ever be feeling like you need to spend money in this game in order to progress. We have tons of guide on the channel. If you're feeling any difficulty, leave a comment below or check out our Discord. I'm sure a lot of people are willing to help you. Just don't feel pressured to spend money. Just a quick disclaimer. And you know this channel is always straight to the point, so I'm going to give you my personal bias, like my thoughts. If you don't care about completing this look of like this Seele portrait here, I don't think E1 or any of the Eidolons are ever going to be more worth it than S1 in the night. And let me give you a reason why. This Lightcone is just insanely strong. Like if you look at it, right, crit rate 18%, you have basic damage increase, basic attack here, damage increase by 6%, per stack it stacks up to 6 times, so it's at 36. Skill damage increased by 36%, and as well as crit damage on their ult increased by 12%, maximum of 72%. And to get the stacks, you just need to have more speed, up to 160 speed, which is actually very achievable for a lot of the hunt characters. If you see here, like Seele already has 115 base speed, and out of all of these like units, all the hunt characters that we have in the game, like for example Yanqing, you have Dan Heng, you have Su Sang, every single unit has some sort of speed buff in their kit already, be it whether it's 10%, 15%, 20%. Some characters stack more. For example, like Seele stacks more. I think Su Sang also stacks a little bit more to be able to hit that 160 threshold very quickly. And they also have very high base speed. They are amongst like the highest base speed in the entire game, which means that this Lightcone plays into the whole thematic of the hunt, which means any future character that comes up, chances are you probably will be able to use a lot of this. And we can put the case in point, like a character like Topaz and Nambi is coming out, and if you're thinking whether you want to get her Lightcone or In the Night, I do think that In the Night is very attractive because of its versatility. Even Topaz and Nambi can use this to some extent, even though it doesn't have like follow-up damage bonuses and stuff like that. So a super good Lightcone. Of course, talking about Super Imposition 1 is already good enough. If you want to go to Super Imposition 5, I don't think that is ever worth it. I think Eidolons in that case might look a little bit more attractive rather than Super Imposition 5. The diminishing returns of getting like a 2% plus or 1% here and stuff like that is really not worth it. So I think S1 is like the best most players would want to go unless you are Leviathan Whale. And in that case, let's talk about when Eidolons will be worth it in that case. Because we already established for the majority of people, I think In the Night is just more worth it. And the reason is because Memory of Chaos always changes. Not always you are going to play Seele, especially if maybe the enemy has like all AoE monsters, or maybe you're not playing her as a main DPS, you want another character. In that case, you can just switch this around. You can slap it on another typing like a wind DPS. You can switch it up to a physical DPS. It still is going to be very useful as well. So I think that is like for most people, Lightcone is aging out. When in that case, why I actually recommend someone to go for Eidolons? I think if you are perhaps you really like this character and it's your main character, a good stopping point, and here's where I talk about like Eidolons, my personal experience playing her so far. I don't think her E6 is as good value as a lot of the other characters, and along the way like E1 and stuff like that, all the way. Characters that have very good Eidolons, in my opinion, are like Luo Ta. Fucc is also pretty good as well, and a few others as well. Unfortunately for Seele, she doesn't scale really well with Eidolons, and I'm gonna explain why. So E1 here is pretty nice. It seems on surface, like surface glance, 15% crit rate, 30% CV, sounds amazing, right? But actually, this is not very synergetic with her overall kit. If you think about it, her whole idea is to one-shot enemies to proc that resurgence passive. When you have a dealing damage to an enemy HP lower, 80% or lower, means someone else had to do the damage to take it down to 80%. If not, you won't be getting this crit rate buff. So theoretically, you are always having a chance of missing your crits if the enemy is like at full life, which means your other characters, maybe you have a AoE character that has to go first in order to take the monsters down to a lower life. If not, there'll be some inefficiencies. How I've liked this one to be is like when the monster is like above 20% HP, above like 20%, so it's like still the same, it's like 20% is inactive. So anything above 20%, you get that crit rate buff. I think it makes much more sense for overall kit. Then at least she can one-shot characters, because she's most of the time going to go first. So this is like my personal gripe, as you can see. I don't think it's that fantastic, but still 15% CV, I'll take it. Is a pretty strong E1 as well. Next up, of course, we have Dancing Butterfly. This one is where I would say like most players who are willing to spend a bit of resources should stop for Seele. Like beyond this is a bit will territory. Once you hit E2, I think is the optimal. And the reason why E2 is where it's nice to stop, because it combos very nicely with the E1. So the speed boost stacks to 2 times. And for those of you who don't know, what this speed boost is actually her, is it the skill? Her skill ability here. When you use the skill, you get a 25% speed buff for 2 turns. So you use it once, you use it twice, you basically get like 50% buff of the base speed. Very easy to hit your 165 or 160 limit for this speed buff. As you can see, it's like if you imagine you just like slap on 50% here, you're already at 165 from the E2. That's why the E2 is very strong when you're comboing with S1. So if you have E1, S0, I think is still okay, but once you have E2, I think S1 has tons of value at that point of time. Or maybe you are E1, S1, then I think E2 will make your kit a lot better. You can even run much more better combinations. You don't have to have that much speed as well. So that's my personal thought. E3, E6, I'm not going to comment on this because this is like probably a segue into E6 if you're going there, and it's just very simple, just more multipliers on your skill, talent, ultimate, and basic attacks. E4, on the other hand, just helps you your rotation much better. So this, when she defeats the enemy, you get more energy back. You defeating an enemy already gives you a lot of energy. She gets resurgence, she goes again, she gets a lot of the energy back. So this helps her cycle much more quicker to like kill ads and out the boss and stuff like that. More of a rotational thing. You will feel that she rotates much more quicker even when she's a little bit slower. But other than that, nothing critical in the kit. What I think is like really interesting about her is at E6, she doesn't become a typical DPS. When at E2, she's good at E2 all the way like E5 here, she's basically a traditional Seele. But once you hit E6 is when she can actually act as a sub DPS, because this debuff here, as you can see, this wall of text, let me just simplify it for you. When you use your ult or use it on target, they will have this debuff. And when any other ally attacks it, they'll proc like quantum damage. Instead of just talking, let me just show you what it looks like, because I think some of you might be curious as well. For this case, I'm going to be switching my characters. Let me just switch her real quick to Kafka. Kafka is a follow-up attack, so it will be nice to see what E6 exactly does. So I'm going to go to a boss real quick. Let me find a boss. Okay, so what her E6 does is, let me just press it real quick. It will basically land, if you notice here, there's no debuffs, but now once we place it in, she will have this debuff on her that is basically saying Butterfly Flurry. On a hit, receives additional quantum damage. And on a hit means any of your teammates hitting. For example, if I use Kafka's Burst now to like out the monster, you can real quick see this quantum instance. That's 6,700. Of course, my Seele is not buffed with Bronya, so it could be even higher. So let me just press E real quick. So if I use the E, you'll see it procs again. Of course, it has a chance of critting or not. And if I buff her, for example, to go up and I just auto attack once, you can see that instance of 10k damage also increases if you get buff. So it creates a lot of interesting comms. I'm just going to retreat real quick. I don't actually need this boss material, just for demonstration purposes. So this E6 actually creates very interesting comms because she can then be played as a sub DPS and still gain a lot of value out of this additional damage. Do I think it's a major thing? For $2,000, if you are spending it at E6, I expect a lot more from this. This is just an interesting thing. It doesn't really make like super much of a difference. You don't even proc like her resurgence if the enemy is knocked down with this additional quantum damage. I would like it a bit different, but it is what it is. Anyways, that is my thoughts for her Eidolons as well as her Lightcone. And if you appreciate such content, and maybe you want to check out some showcases on my E6 Seele or maybe a build guide video, check out these two videos right here. And I also share my thoughts on Topaz, Nambi, Seele on the channel if you're interested in all of that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.